everyone, today we are going to be talking about this. This is the October issue of Cosmopolitan magazine, at least this is the UK version, and on the cover you will notice Tess Holliday. Not to be rude, but a morbidly obese woman. There's been a lot of controversy about putting her on the cover, and we are going to be talking about that today. I was a little bit iffy about whether I actually want to speak about this in a video or not, and I've kind of gone back and forth for a couple of reasons. First one being that I know whatever I say, I'm going to get accused of fat shaming, and I can't deny I am a skinny young woman, and there are going to be people out there who tell me that I can't possibly understand what I'm talking about. There are going to be people out there who are like, you don't know what it's like to be fat. And there are people out there who are going to just criticize me for being who I am and talking about this topic. But I figured, there's no getting around that, so I might as well do it. Second reason I was a little bit iffy to talk about this is because I don't want to come across as pretending I'm some moral authority on all matters health and beauty, because I'm not, far from it. I'm just a young woman with an opinion. And finally, the third and probably biggest reason why I wasn't sure if I want to put this on video is because my own views, they keep differing and changing and evolving, and I'm not quite sure I have a fully formed opinion yet. But that's kind of why I want to make this video, to kind of get all my thoughts out there, put them all together, and hopefully somehow come up with some kind of conclusion and then hear your thoughts and change them some more. Disclaimer first before I start, everything I'm going to be talking about is going to be based on the UK issue. I've no idea if or how the US version of the magazine differs. I'm pretty sure she's on the US cover as well, but I don't know that. So everything I'm talking about is UK centric, alright? Just a little disclaimer putting that out there. So before we start, little background and a little confession from me is that I love magazines. You guys know I love reading and I read a lot of books. Fiction, non-fiction, graphic novels, comics, everything. But I also really love magazines. It's kind of like my time where I run myself a bubble bath a few times a month and I just sit there with some magazines and I just read and flick through and just enjoy them. And it's kind of like a me time. And I read a lot of different things. So my inner nerd loves New Scientist and National Geographic, and for something a little bit lighter, like World of Animals, stuff like that. And then the fashion side of me loves Vogue. The photography side of me loves the fashion photography in Harper's Bazaar. It's always beautiful in there, always. I love the articles and opinion pieces in Elle. And then my kind of trashy read, or my guilty pleasure read, is Cosmo. Don't judge me, alright? But where else can you get, in the space of 5 pages, high street fashion, some opinion piece on why I'm a sugar baby or something trashy like that, and then an interview with an actually decent celebrity, all within 5 pages. It's brilliant and kind of trashy, and I love it. I'll admit the UK version isn't as bad as the US version. There's no questionable dating advice in here like there is in the US version, and it's got a lot better in recent years, but it's still kind of my guilty pleasure read that I don't really tell people about, but I always pick it up, so anyway, on to the topic at hand. Tess Holliday, plus-size model, starter of #FYourBeautyStandards, and yeah, that's about all I knew about her before this. This month, putting Tess Holliday on the cover of Cosmopolitan caused quite a bit of a stir across the Western world. Apparently this was a big step forward in challenging beauty standards and stuff, because she is the first plus-size model to grace the cover of Cosmopolitan, or at least that's what I've heard a lot of places saying, and she's not. January 2017, Ashley Graham, plus-size model, on the cover of Cosmo. The difference is Tess Holliday is the first morbidly obese woman on the cover of Cosmo. Not being rude, just a fact. So like I say, I have mixed feelings about this, and I've heard a lot of opinions from people saying this and that, and some people love it and some people hate it, and a lot of people have strong opinions. I honestly kind of, in some ways, I couldn't care either way. In other ways, I'm like, yeah, why shouldn't she be on the cover? And then in other ways, I'm like, this is actually really, really terrible. So I don't quite know what to think, so I'm just gonna kind of spew all my thoughts to you guys, and then we can have a chat about it in the comments, right? So the positive of having Tess Holliday on the cover of Cosmo, it challenges beauty standards. Says you can be beautiful at any size. That's a good thing, right? Except I kind of think this is glamorizing a really, really unhealthy lifestyle. It's easy for people who talk about challenging beauty standards to say they're sick of seeing skinny white women who are like typically beautiful on covers of magazines, but I don't think that's the case at all. Look back at Cosmopolitan over the last couple of years and you'll see there's a huge range of women gracing the covers and featured inside the magazines as well. Yeah, there are a couple of your like typical beautiful skinny young women. You have Ariana Grande, Megan Fox, Michelle Keegan, people like that. But there's also a lot more. There are women of all races, all backgrounds, all ages, all sizes, and I think it's kind of amazing. Flipping through a pile of old magazines I had to hand looking at Cosmo, you have quite a curvy Kesha on the cover of one, you have the androgynous Ruby Rose on another, and, of course, plus-size model Ashley Graham. You have women of all races and ages and backgrounds, women with all sorts of talents. There is definitely diversity in the cover stars of Cosmo, or at least there has been in the past few years. We've seen bigger women, regular women, skinny women. Everyone's represented, and it's kind of awesome. But for me, the big difference between covers like this and covers like this are in the women themselves, and also in the articles and interviews about them. So to take a look at a couple of examples, take a look at the Kesha issue. Kesha is an incredibly talented musician, obviously, wonderful singer. I really like her music, like even the electro-poppy stuff and then the new album, and I just really like her and I think she's a pretty amazing person. But if we just talk about this issue and the article and the interview, she promotes a really healthy lifestyle. She talks about overcoming a really dangerous eating disorder, and in her photos, she's still curvy. She says she's currently at like the biggest weight she's ever been, but she still looks beautiful and she still looks healthy. She's still a normal, healthy weight for a regular woman. Purely based on these photos and interviews, she comes across as a fantastic role model for both adult women and young girls, I think. But that's just a personal opinion. The great thing about Kesha is there's more to her than just appearance, so while having her on the cover as a kind of curvy girl is challenging beauty standards, there's also more to her than just her looks. But what about the women who kind of make a career out of just their looks? Models. Then you look at people like Ashley Graham, right? When she was on the cover, she manages to challenge these beauty standards of saying you don't have to be this anorexic, stick-thin figure to, you know, be a powerful, beautiful woman who models. Like, she manages that. She's tall, she's curvy, she's a bigger woman who models plus sizes. She has a plus size range of clothing and, you know, she's still healthy and beautiful. She's bigger, but she's not obese. That's the difference. And she doesn't make everything about her weight either. The article about her interview includes lines like, while the 28-year-old doesn't like to be introduced as plus-size model Ashley Graham, she's a model, period, but the term doesn't offend her either. She talks about her insecurities and self-esteem, and throughout the interview and the article, she never once promotes obesity or any kind of unhealthy lifestyle, which I think is really, really important, especially when you're a model and your entire career is about how you look and how your body is, you know? She talks about loving who you are, but to do that, she talks about taking care of your body. Near the end of the article, it reads, yes, Ashley works out regularly. No, it's not about weight, it's about strength and feeling good. And I think that's a fantastic, really important message to get across. So, two bigger, curvy women on the covers of Cosmo. How does this compare to Tess Holliday? It could not be more different. Obviously, Tess Holliday is bigger for a star, but that's not everything. Kesha's interview has the tagline, there aren't many who would survive what she's been through, but Kesha is a fighter, as we learned. Compare that to Tess Holliday's tagline, which opens with, Tess Holliday weighs 300 pounds, and also some other stuff about her, which is pretty cool. But the fact that this is the first bit, that really annoys me. This stuff, great. This stuff, the rest of the interview just really confuses me. There's some kind of mixed messages in here. So she talks a lot about receiving hate messages online and how some of them are really, really horrible. I don't agree with that. I don't think anyone should get that sent to them. She does not deserve it regardless of her weight. But then she says this while talking about her weight. This isn't genetic, she says, gesturing to her size 26 frame. This body wasn't me sitting around eating Cheetos all day, although I effing love Cheetos. Again, it's kind of confusing and I don't quite get what her message is. And then she talks about how she hit puberty and she had a really big bum and I was already different to everyone else. But that's as far as it goes with that. And then the bit that really annoys me is this bit later on that says, Of course, now she looks back and regrets hiding her body. I was a US size 16 to 18 my entire life before I had Riley, her first son, who she had at 20. I look back on those photos now and I don't wish I was that size, but what I wish is that I loved myself 120 pounds ago. I'm at the heaviest I've ever been in my life now, and it took me being the heaviest to finally love myself. This is where it's different for me, and this is where there's a problem. And like I say, of course, the tagline is, Tess Holliday weighs 300 pounds, which I can't help think, with her statement, is glamorising and promoting being such a unhealthy weight. She is, without a doubt, morbidly obese. And while there is some interesting stuff in here in this interview about her family and stuff like that, and how she overcame being raped, which I think is a really important thing to talk about and she should be commended for, the rest of her story in the article seems little more than, I'm fat, people don't like it, pity me, which I find really annoying, to be honest. The fact that throughout this story, it basically celebrates her being 300 pounds and gives no warning about the health implications of being such a huge weight. It's just glossed over, and that does make me uncomfortable. I'm all for people feeling good about themselves, I'm all for people having high self-esteem, I'm all for accepting all body types, but not when it's at the detriment of people's health. Should we encourage people to keep smoking if it makes them feel cool and happy and accepted? No, because it's still dangerous. That's why no matter how much you love your body, we shouldn't encourage people to want to maintain a 300-pound weight because it's unhealthy and dangerous. I mean, I'm not saying obese people should have low self-esteem, I'm just saying it's a very complicated issue. Sorry, I'm kicking my chair again and it's making annoying noises. All this said, this is where it gets really kind of confusing and complicated for me, in my opinions, because I don't really think it's up to anyone else to necessarily judge her for a weight. And I certainly don't agree with the people who send her messages calling her disgusting and ugly and things like that. I think that's completely uncalled for and unnecessary, and it's just not nice, and I don't agree with it. I don't think anyone deserves that. But I think she should be the one to realise that her weight isn't healthy, if that makes sense. And I don't think she should be promoting it as this positive thing. I don't know, it's really complicated because at the same time she doesn't seem to realise it's a problem, and she doesn't seem to want to get healthy either for herself or her kids, so then maybe other people do need to say it. Is it really anyone else's place? I don't know, it's so difficult and complicated, and this is where I have a mess of thoughts. And this is obviously where magazines like Cosmopolitan come in, right? Because if we look at magazines like this and take cues from it about what's okay and what isn't, then we get some really weird mixed messages, right? Being told you should feel good about yourself regardless of your age and ethnicity and background and profession, body type, whatever. That's a really good message. But for me, the people on the cover of Cosmo are people who have usually done something really awesome, right? People who are talented or successful. They're people who I can usually respect for one reason or another. However, when that person has done little more than essentially tell people it's okay to be dangerously unhealthy, I'm not sure I can have that much respect for them, or at least have much respect for that. I mean, to give you an example, and this is an extreme example, it's not a one-to-one comparison with this situation, but let's just imagine Cosmo puts a person with lung cancer on the cover of their magazine, and that person hasn't given up smoking, even though that's what caused their lung cancer, and the entire article was about how they set up this hashtag F your health standards thing, and how they love their body so much, and they've just accepted that smoking is a part of their life and they don't want to change it. And so now that means that cancer is a part of their life, and they love their cancer-ridden body. It took getting cancer to realise how much they love themselves, and looking back, yeah, they wish they'd loved their healthy body too. But now they love their cancer-ridden body, and they're going to keep smoking, and they're going to keep posting pictures of themselves smoking. They're going to avoid saying that smoking is bad. They're not going to tell anyone that smoking leads to lung cancer. Nowhere in the article or interview with them does it say anything about why smoking is bad and how cancer is likely going to kill them. They just gloss over that stuff. It's okay to die of cancer because as long as you have confidence and as long as everyone thinks you're beautiful, it's okay. See, you'd never get that. And I know it's an extreme example, and I know it's not exactly the same as this, but that's why this makes me uncomfortable. This woman is at such risk of joint issues, heart disease, and just, oh my god, the health complications with being this morbidly obese are ridiculous. And the fact that we can put someone like this on a mainstream magazine as a role model is a little bit insane to me. And you know, if she was a role model because she was a great actress, or she was a great singer, or a politician, or a businesswoman, that would be different. But because we're celebrating her for her body and her appearance and her looks, that's what makes this different for me. It also feels incredibly hypocritical that 20 pages earlier, literally 20 pages earlier, they have an article titled Hardwire Your Health, and they detail how to have the best diet and exercise and what health tests you need at each age to be the healthiest you can be. Isn't it a little bit hypocritical to have that and this in the same magazine? On the other hand, I'm also like, well, at least somewhere in the magazine they're sharing both sides of their health story. And part of my brain is like, well, at least Tess Holliday is happy with herself and confident and like loves herself and her body, which is more than can be said for most women out there. Another part of me says, you know, this isn't a children's magazine. This is aimed at grown adult women who should be old enough and wise enough to think for themselves, right? They shouldn't just take everything they see at face value. They should understand the risks of being obese and eating unhealthily and so on. And yeah, there's a part of my brain that's like, just because she's unhealthy, does that really like disqualify her from being treated like any other woman? She's still a woman who's had a very successful career and wants to celebrate that. And so part of me is like, well, that's not a bad thing. But then again, I'm like glorifying an unhealthy lifestyle and like saying you can have a successful career by having an unhealthy lifestyle. That's what irks me. And that's what I don't like. And that's why I'm really, really confused about this whole thing. So anyway, I'm going to stop rambling and leave this here. This was just a big kind of jumble of my thoughts on this whole issue. If you've read this issue of Cosmopolitan and the article, then let me know what you thought of it. If you haven't, just let me know what you think of seeing an image like this on the cover, knowing that it's all about body image and body positivity when we're talking about a 300-pound body. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. I'm so confused and conflicted as to what to think right now, but I think ultimately I am leaning a little bit towards this was a bad idea and this sends a bad message. I think that's the way I'm leaning at the minute. But I don't know, like I say, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching today. I really do appreciate you guys, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you so much for watching today. A huge thank you goes out to everyone supporting me on Patreon this month, including Gambit and the Chauffeur, Deshauwn, Mark Dauner, Christian Berg, Rachel B. Royer, Jadeon Sheppard, Pixelated Skeptic, Jaylee Moore, Religion's BS, Sir Michael Moore, Matthew Minamar, Sage Hilarial, and Greg Vlad. Don't forget to check out all my merch available over on Teespring and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me in the future. Thanks a lot, guys.